Why one religion? Why can't you take them all?
Yes, absolutely. I think he was a great man. I don't think he's the son of God. I think that
Jesus was a hippie.
He follows Jesus Christ, not the church. I don't follow him to church. That's what I want to talk about, because Jesus Christ was the Son of God, and he didn't back down for nobody.
I believe in a higher power.
Christians who say I'm right, I think they're fools.
Howdy, this is Pastor Mark here at HempFest. Yes, HempFest in Seattle, wearing my Jesus is Watching You Smoke That Weed t-shirt. And we're just doing a bunch of interviews with some very interesting characters to see if we can get some vignettes on culture, spirituality, religion, Jesus, and whatever else they have smoked enough to give us their insights on. So thanks for joining us. So you think this is what heaven would be like? Kind of like HempFest?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't actually believe in heaven or hell or
none of that kind of stuff. You got any religious background? Your mom dragged you to church against your will?
No, I've been to church and I've read the Bible and stuff, but it just confuses me more and more and more. I just don't know why.
What do you think? What's most confusing as you read it?
Like check this out. If you try and explain Noah's Ark to a 9-year-old retarded kid, once you get into start and say, okay, we took the lions and the giraffes on there, and then the kid's gonna go, wait a minute, I'm not that retarded. Lions eat giraffes. So this is kind of crazy, you know. See, I see all these dichotomies in it, you know.
Have you ever tried to smoke weed and read it, see if that helps?
Oh, one of my favorite songs is Let's Get High and Read the Bible. Let's get high and read the Bible. I always like to learn about Jesus when I'm stoned. Let's get high and read the Bible. Let's get high and read the Bible. I always like to learn about Jesus when I'm stoned. You know, because Jesus probably faked the resurrection using cannabis.
How do you think he did that? Faked it with pot?
Yep.
You think he got everybody high? Like secondhand smoke, and they all had an illusion?
He was like a trust fund kid. He had all the money, so everybody, all the magi and stuff would bring him all kinds of gifts: frankincense, myrrh, hashish. And he got a whole bunch of hashish, and he just ate a ton of hashish when he knew it was, Last Supper. So it's like,
so Last Supper, he just ate so much weed, he just passed out for a while?
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, it wore off.
Yeah.
The brownies cleared out of his system, and he was back to go?
Yep. And then he ran off and went to HempFest.
Cool. Good to meet you, Dan.
See you guys.
Thanks, buddy. At this point, I'm anticipating resistance among some. Some of you will say, but that's a lot of Bible. I know this is a church and you're a pastor, but I'm not a Christian, and all you gave me is Bible. I'm a skeptic. I like history. Right? I like objective sources, as if there were such a thing. Right? I had that same perspective until I was 19 years of age. I was a freshman in college. I did not believe in the resurrection of Jesus, and then I began examining the evidence because it kept coming up in philosophy and world religion classes and history classes and such, as we dealt with the legacy of Christianity. And I thought, I better come to my own conclusion on the resurrection of Jesus. I didn't think he had risen, but I thought I'll double check and see. And I began looking, and I looked at the biblical evidence, I looked at the circumstantial evidence, but what was helpful to me was the historical evidence. I wanted to know, are there any non-Christians who say that Jesus rose from death from the early days of the Christian faith? Because if I could find credible sources like news anchors or historians who were not Christians who would tell me that Jesus rose, then that would help to verify the factuality of the New Testament account of the resurrection of Jesus. Now, as a Christian today, I believe that the Scripture is the highest authority, but in that day, it was really helpful for me to see that supplemental and additional authorities were in complete agreement and harmony with Scripture. It verified what Scripture said. So I will share those with you. There are more that I could share, but I will share 3 for the sake of time. And the primary cultural groupings in that day were Greeks and Romans and Jews. And so I'm going to look at some people who did not believe in the resurrection of Jesus, who were from some different cultures than being Christian. The first being a historian named Josephus. Okay? And again, we're talking about credible historians who worked for the emperor, right? They're commissioned by the government as leading historians. We're not looking at a 13-year-old kid with a blog and a bunch of crazy ideas, right? We're not looking at the stranger, as a news source. We're looking at major network anchors, dependable, trustworthy news reporters. We're looking at established historians who are going out and doing investigative research like a journalist for emperors, for powerful political leaders. These are the best minds and the best thinkers of the day. The first is Josephus. He was born just a few years after Jesus died. Eyewitnesses were still alive so that he could interview them. The most celebrated passage that he has is called the Testimonium Flavianum, and it comes from his book, The Antiquities. And I'll read to you a fairly lengthy section. He says, "About this time there lived Jesus," so he's talking about Jesus, "a wise man, if one ought to call him a man. For he was one who wrought surprising feats and was a teacher of such people as accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Christ. When Pilate, upon hearing him accused by men of the highest standing among us, had condemned him to be crucified, those who had in the first place come to love him did not give up their affection for him." I'll stop there and read the rest in a moment. But let me summarize what he says. He says, well, I went out and did all the homework. Here's the story of Jesus. Because the emperor wants to know, what's this talk about Jesus? Why is everybody worshiping Jesus? He's not even here. Why is he so popular? Why is his religion growing? He says, well, I did all the work, and here's the deal. Jesus lived. He was a teacher and a miracle worker. He said amazing things. He did amazing things. He was convicted of saying he was God, right, the highest accusation, and then he was put to death. He was executed. He died. Yet, even though he died, people still worship him and love him. Why? Why that devotion? He goes on to explain. On the third day, he appeared to them restored to life. This is the journalistic, historical description of the person and work of Jesus from a non-Christian. On the third day, he appeared to them restored to life. The reason why everybody loves Jesus and won't quit talking about him, he died and came back to life. He resurrected. He beat death. For the prophets of God had prophesied these and countless other marvelous things about him, and the tribe of Christians, so called after him, has still to this day not disappeared. Question, why is Christianity growing? Answer, Jesus rose from death. That's the non-Christian's answer.